Hello, hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Abhilash Padi. I am one of the students of MAFCS, which is MA in Folklore and Culture. And before I go ahead any further, let me introduce myself. I've already told you guys what my name is. I am an MA in English already. I did my postgraduate in MA in English in 2012, and I have around 17 years of corporate experience, but I like to study. And recently I came across a subject in IGNOU, which is very unique in itself. It has a formal structure to folklore and culture. So very less universities offer this course, and therefore I have enrolled myself in this course. And the idea behind me sharing this is that right, the best way to learn something is by sharing your knowledge. And therefore what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer to the IGNOU course material that's there, and try and simplify the subject for you all, at the same time learn from it as well. So in the without much ado, let's get started. The first topic, or the first section that we have, is folklore and culture, the conceptual perspectives, and within that we have a sub section, or the sub block, called as folklore issues and methods. Okay, and let me and then within that we have definition, function, and genres. Okay, so let's just go through each section in detail, and let's try and understand more. So, what is the objective of this unit? After reading this unit, you will be able to understand the concept of folklore, define folklore, discuss the background of the history of folklore studies. I think this is something very interesting. Understand the history of folklore studies, identify with its components and characteristics. Also list out the functions of folklore and explain the genres belonging to folklore studies. So, without much ado, let's start with the introduction. In simple words, what it says is folklore covers almost our entire life experience. It is present in our day to day life, in our daily life. We cannot deny its presence in speech, such as riddles, jokes. It is present in our games, dance, and song. None of the studies of human life, from ethnography. Now, I've also researched what ethnography is. Ethnography is a scientific, let's just the scientific description of different races and cultures. So let's go back to where we stopped. So none of the studies of human life, from ethnography, history, obviously we understand what it means, linguistics to literature. Now what linguistic means? Linguistics is the study of languages, to literature, can ignore folklore, which means uh, let's talk about ethnography, history, linguistics, or literature. All of it, all the different subjects would have elements of folklore in it. It is acquiring more and more importance as a separate field of study and discipline, which is why, I have enrolled in this master's, and which is why you are listening to this course. Somewhere both of us feel connected, and this has a organized content, organized structure to this subject, right? So, in order to grasp the scope and importance of folklore, we need to first understand the historical development of the discipline in itself. So let's try and understand. Let's deep dive more into what folklore is, the history of folklore, how did it start. We will also talk about some of the important people who have their contributions in the folklore. So the history of folklore studies began in the 19th century, right? However, it says one can trace its roots Back even further, I'm sure there are a lot of people, there are traces of folklore much before that as well. According to Max Muller, it is said that all races find their origin in certain basic tribes originating from the ancient Medes or the Persians. So, what they're trying to say here is all the races have somewhere there's a common origin, either to the ancient Medes or the Persians, and therefore, you know, you would find some words very common in different cultures. For example, two different cultures, the cultures are completely different, but few words would be common. For instance, the word father, for example, can be seen in the German Vater. Vater. Although it is VATER, is pronounced as Vater. Old German, FATR, Vater. Greek and Latin is Pater, and in Sanskrit, Pater or Petri. And therefore, we can determine how folk speech and utterances had some common generic roots. It is also said that certain folklore ideas of modern European nations belong to paganism and Hinduism. Now, what is paganism? Paganism is, I've also done some research on what paganism is. Let's quickly refer to the notes. And now, paganism is a religion other than one of the main world religions, specifically a non-Christian or a pre-Christian religion. Now, this is the definition that we find in Google. Paganism is a term used in the 4th century by early Christians for people in the Roman Empire who practiced polytheism, which means uh, you know people used to practice many gods or ethnic religions other than Judaism. All right, now let's get back to our topic again. Yes, so it is also said that certain folklore ideas of modern European nations belong to paganism and Hinduism as well. Now, like we've already mentioned, that folklore, the concept of folklore was not organized, or wasn't systematic until the 18th century. Johann Gottfried von Herder, a famous scholar, in his famous book Stimmen der Völker in Leyden, 1778-79, has had used the term folk with Volk, VOLK, and described folk songs as Folklied, Folkesel as the soul of folk, and Folksglobe as the belief. He saw in the arts of common people a reflection of nation state and its consciousness. It was after the 18th century that the study of folklore began as a separate discipline and got its due importance. So what it means is only after the 18th century the whole concept of folklore got a lot of structure and it became more systematic. All right, and the contribution of Grimm brothers who published their work in 1812 cannot be undermined. We will study more about Grimm brothers in the next section. Once we complete the unit one, once we go to unit two, we will study about Grimm brothers in a little more detail. They use the term Volkskunde for folklore. Now, how is Volkskunde pronounced? Spelled, it is Volkskunde, but it's pronounced as Volkskunde. It's a German word, and it's pronounced as Volkskunde. The term folklore was established by a Briton. Britain, what is a Briton? An inhabitant or a native of Great Britain is called as Briton. Um, William Thoms in 1846. Okay, let me repeat. The term folklore was established by a Briton, William Thoms, in 1846. Nationalistic fervor and patriotism gave folklore a special impetus as it was felt by many for the need to save and document their cultural heritage. As a result, many national societies and folklore came into existence in the 19th century. The English folklore was formed in 1878 and the American in 1888. Folklore has thus played a very important role in cultivating and creating a national identity and consciousness amongst the people. Now, what is the essence of this paragraph? It means that because that was the era where uh, the nationalist movement was on throughout the world, uh, different parts of the world, and which and patriotism as well, right? Because a lot of countries would capture other countries, and patriotism was at its peak at in different countries, and that was the time where people felt that the concept of folklore, or the it needs to be documented, it needs to be saved for their cultural heritage, and that was one of the primary reasons why the whole concept of making it systematic and storing the documentation began. Now, from the definition of norms, the word folklore is now an internationally accepted word. It should be noted that the term Volkskunde is increasingly avoided in Germany as Hitler used it for propaganda reasons. Many scholars, especially from Latin America, associate folklore with colonial imperialism. Now, so let's understand this term, colonial imperialism. I have also um, done some research in it. Now, what it means, colonialism can be thought of as a practice of domination, right? The practice of domination is colonialism, and imperialism as an idea behind the practice, right? The idea behind the practice is imperialism, and colonialism is the thought, as a thought of the practice, or the practice of domination, right? So let me give you even more details. Colonialism is where one country physically exerts complete control over another country, and imperialism is formal or informal economic and political domination of one country over the other. Okay, so here we go. So let's read the statement one more time. Many scholars, especially from Latin America, associate folklore with colonialism, colonial imperialism. They prefer the term popular antiquities. In India, we see that this term is strongly associated with Janapada or Lok. At the same time, folklore studies is strongly nationalist in content. We've already established this in the previous paragraph. All right. During the 19th and the 20th century, scholars studies songs, tales, and games and define them as folklore. However, today it includes a wide range of meeting points and comprise of a large range of oral and verbal practices, as well as material performances including songs, theater, weaving, as well as something like building houses and cooking, right? So that was the history of folklore, and in the next topic we will discuss the definition of folklore in general, and definition of folklore by eminent people, and also how the definition sort of differs from people to people from time to time, and we'll also find out the commonality between the definitions, the common structure as well. I hope you have liked this session of today, and I will continue to share, each session, more sessions in detail. If you do have any feedback, do share your feedback. To, I would love to implement those feedback and make your learning interesting. So happy learning.